We're going to be looking at the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025. And this is not your typical, kind of like job market forecast. This report is seriously in depth.
Yeah.
It's built on insights from over 1,000 global employers, representing something like 14.1 million workers across 22 industries and 55 economies. They did this survey late in 2024. And what's really cool is that it gives us a glimpse into these big trends shaping the job market all the way to 2030. So we're talking fastest growing jobs, skills that are going to be in crazy high demand, and some pretty surprising shifts that are already happening.
What's really cool about this report is it doesn't just, it doesn't just like list out trends. It actually tries to go deeper. It helps us understand like the underlying forces that are driving these changes. So it's not just like, here are the trends, but like why these trends are happening.
Exactly. So instead of just hearing like, oh, AI is the future, we can actually, look at how AI is going to impact specific jobs and what skills, we need to develop to thrive in this new world. And the report starts by laying out some pretty major macro trends that are really going to impact all of us.
Yeah.
What really struck me was this emphasis on, broadening digital access. They say 60% of employers believe that this is going to be the most transformative force, shaping their businesses by 2030.
I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. Digital access is like the foundation for so many other technological advancements. Like without widespread access to the internet, cloud computing, mobile devices, things like AI and automation can't really reach their full potential.
Totally. And speaking of AI and automation, the report says that 86% of employers believe that, AI and automation are going to be game changers for their businesses. But it's not just talking about robots taking over. They actually point to a study that found that generative AI can actually enhance human skills and performance.
Yeah, this study was fascinating because it goes beyond that typical fear of like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs. But it actually shows how AI can like augment human capabilities. So for example, like imagine electricians, doctors and engineers being able to like solve problems faster and more effectively because they have AI tools that are providing them with like the latest knowledge and insights.
That's so cool. It's like having an AI assistant who's constantly up to date on like all the latest research and best practices. But what about people in less specialized roles? Could AI kind of empower them to take on more complex tasks as well?
That's honestly one of the most exciting possibilities. Like imagine accounting clerks, nurses, teaching assistants, being able to perform tasks that, used to require specialized expertise because they have these AI-powered tools and guidance. I mean, it could totally change the way we think about job roles and career paths.
That's kind of mind-blowing. It's like AI could help, level the playing field in a way and create opportunities for people to upskill and take on new challenges. But of course, the report doesn't shy away from the challenges either. Economic uncertainty is a big one, especially with the rising cost of living. That's a major concern for so many people right now.
Yeah, the report found that slower economic growth is a major worry for 42% of employers, which suggests that businesses are really feeling the pressure to stay competitive and just navigate these uncertain times.
And then there's climate change. I mean, it's no longer just like an environmental issue. It's a major economic and social force that is really impacting businesses worldwide.
The report makes it very clear that climate change is a driving force for change in the job market, both in terms of like mitigating it, finding ways to reduce emissions, and adaptation, figuring out how to live with the changes that are already happening. What's really striking is that 47% of employers see climate change mitigation impacting their businesses, and 41% are concerned about adaptation.
Yeah, those are big numbers.
It really shows how climate change is no longer like a niche concern. It's something that businesses across all sectors are having to deal with.
Yeah, and it creates both challenges and opportunities. On one hand, businesses need to adapt their operations to become more sustainable, more resilient, in the face of climate change. But on the other hand, it's driving this growth of these whole new industries that are focused on green technologies and solutions.
Yeah, it makes sense. So we've got digital access fueling this tech revolution, economic uncertainty, creating pressure points, climate change, driving both disruption and innovation. It's a pretty complex landscape. On top of all of that, we've got this whole geopolitical situation to think about. The report says that a third of organizations are being affected by geopolitical fragmentation, especially those that are doing business with the US and China. Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting, because you might think that geopolitical tensions would primarily lead to, like demand for security related jobs and skills. But while that's definitely part of it, we're also seeing this surge in demand for like uniquely human skills, like resilience, leadership, adaptability.
That's so interesting. It's almost like a paradox.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, think about it. In a world that feels like increasingly divided and unstable, businesses need leaders who can like navigate that complexity, make tough decisions under pressure, and bring people together. You need employees that can adapt to changing circumstances, bounce back from setbacks. These are all qualities that are really difficult to automate or outsource.
Yeah, it's true. It's like in times of uncertainty and disruption,
Yeah.
we need those uniquely human skills more than ever. And speaking of change, there's also, major demographic shifts happening around the world
Yeah.
that are impacting the job market.
Yeah, and this is another crucial factor that often gets overlooked. Some parts of the world are aging rapidly, while others have these, booming young populations. And this has like a ripple effect across all sectors, from healthcare and education to technology and manufacturing.
Yeah, it's true. It makes you realize that the future of work isn't just about technology or economics, It's about people. It's about like where we live, how old we are,
Yeah.
and what skills and experiences we bring to the table.
Exactly. It's all connected. These macro trends are like these powerful currents,
Yeah.
shaping the entire job market, influencing the opportunities that are going to be available to you in the years to come.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But it's definitely exciting.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Okay, so with all these forces at play, like digital access, AI,
Yeah.
climate change, geopolitical shifts, demographic trends, what does it actually mean for the job landscape? I mean, are robots really about to take over the world?
Right. That's the question everyone's asking. But the report actually paints a more nuanced picture. It predicts a net increase in jobs by 2030. But it's not just about like the total number of jobs. It's about which jobs are growing and which ones are declining. And that's where things get really interesting.
All right, let's get to the juicy stuff. What are like the hottest jobs of the future?
Well, when we look at, percentage growth, technology-related roles are definitely in the lead. We're talking about like big data specialists, AI and machine learning specialists, software and application developers. All of these roles are seeing just massive growth, which, makes sense given the trends we've been discussing.
Right, it's like the digital revolution is creating this huge demand for people who can like build, manage, analyze the systems that are powering our world. But it's not all about coding and algorithms, right? There are other fields that are seeing significant growth as well.
Absolutely. For example, fintech is a booming sector. And just in case you're not familiar, fintech basically refers to the use of technology to innovate in financial services. So think like mobile banking apps, online payment platforms, cryptocurrency, all that kind of falls under the umbrella of fintech. And naturally, this growth is creating a huge demand for fintech engineers, people who can design and build these systems.
Wow, I hadn't really thought about it that way. It's amazing how technology is like transforming every industry, even finance, which has traditionally been seen as a more conservative field. But what about the impact of climate change? Are we seeing growth in green jobs as well?
Oh, absolutely. The green economy is definitely on the rise. And you can see that in the growing demand for roles like autonomous and electric vehicle specialists, environmental engineers, renewable energy engineers. It's really cool to see how climate change, while it presents these significant challenges, it's also driving innovation and creating all these new career opportunities.
So if you're someone who's like passionate about sustainability and wants a job that's both, in demand and good for the planet, it sounds like the green sector has a lot to offer. But on the flip side, what about the jobs that are on the decline? Is everyone going to be replaced by robots like in the movies?
Well, the report does highlight some job categories that are expected to shrink in the coming years. A lot of these are clerical roles, things like cashiers, ticket clerks, admin assistants. And honestly, this isn't a huge surprise. Automation has been impacting these types of jobs for a while now, and that trend is likely to continue.
Yeah, it makes sense that tasks that are like repetitive and easily standardized are, more susceptible to automation. But here's something I found really surprising. The report actually predicts that farm workers, delivery drivers, and construction workers will be the largest growing job types in terms of raw numbers. That seems kind of counterintuitive, in our increasingly tech-driven world.
It is a bit unexpected, but when you think about it, there are a few factors at play here. First, demand for agricultural products and construction is still really high, and these are jobs that are difficult to fully automate. And second, the rise of e-commerce has created this massive need for delivery drivers. So even in a high-tech world, there's still this need for people who can do hands-on work.
That's actually really reassuring to hear, It's like a reminder that technology isn't going to replace all jobs. There will always be a need for human skills and expertise, especially in fields that require like physical dexterity, problem solving, adaptability. What other surprises did the report reveal?
Okay, so this might be a bit of a curveball, but get ready for a boom in care and education jobs. We're talking about nursing professionals, social workers, teachers. All of these roles are projected to see really significant growth.
Wow, it's amazing. This related to like the aging populations
Yeah.
that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. As societies age, the demand for healthcare and education professionals naturally increases. But it goes beyond just demographics. There's this growing recognition of the importance of these professions. And I think that's reflected in the job growth projections.
That's really encouraging. It's like society is starting to value those who care for others.
Yeah.
And, educate the next generation. That's pretty cool. But let's kind of shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about, specific jobs, but what about the skills that people will need to thrive in this like evolving job market? What does the report say about that?
Well, the report dives deep into the skills landscape, and it's packed with valuable insights. It starts by highlighting the top core skills of today, the skills that are essential for success in pretty much any field. These include analytical thinking, resilience, flexibility, leadership, and creative thinking.
Those sound like pretty solid skills to have, no matter what you do. But what about the skills that are specifically in demand for the future? Are there any like emerging trends in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. The report identifies the fastest growing skills, and a lot of them are unsurprisingly in the tech realm. AI and big data, networks and cybersecurity, technological literacy. These are all skills that are becoming increasingly essential as technology continues to advance. But here's something interesting. Environmental stewardship is now a top 10 skill for the first time ever.
Wow, that's a big deal. It really highlights how sustainability is becoming like a core value across all industries.
Yeah.
It's no longer just a nice to have. It's a must have for businesses that want to stay competitive
Yeah.
and attract top talent.
You hit the nail on the head. And alongside these tech and green skills, we're also seeing this continued rise in demand for creative thinking, resilience, and curiosity lifelong learning. It seems like these uniquely human skills are becoming even more valuable in this rapidly changing world.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, when things are changing so fast, you need to be able to like adapt, learn new things, and come up with innovative solutions. Those are the skills that really set humans apart from machines. But the report also pointed out a trend that's a little bit unsettling: the decline of physical skills. What exactly does that mean?
We're talking about skills like manual dexterity, strength, and hand-eye coordination. The types of skills that are, traditionally associated with manual labor. The report predicts that these skills will become less important in the future. And this is the first time we've seen this trend. It raises some interesting questions about the nature of work and the role of technology.
I could see why that would be a little concerning. Does this mean that we're all going to be like sitting at computers all day, and that, jobs that require hands-on skills are just going to disappear?
It's not quite that simple. While it's true that automation is impacting a lot of jobs that require physical skills, it's also creating new opportunities in fields like robotics, advanced manufacturing, even healthcare. So it's not necessarily about the disappearance of physical skills, but rather a shift in the types of physical skills that will be in demand.
That's a really important distinction. It's not about technology replacing humans, but rather humans and technology working together in new ways.
Exactly. And this brings us to another crucial point: the importance of retraining and upskilling. The report emphasizes that workers whose jobs are most likely to be displaced by technology are going to need to acquire new skills to stay competitive in the evolving job market. And this is where things get really interesting.
So we're talking about retraining and upskilling. How are companies actually approaching this? Are they investing in their employees or just replacing them with robots?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? And luckily, the report, really digs into how businesses are strategizing for this future. The good news is upskilling is the #1 workforce strategy across pretty much every industry. It seems like companies are realizing that their employees are these valuable assets worth investing in, not just, disposable cogs in a machine.
That's so good to hear. It sounds like they're finally understanding that, investing in their employees' skills isn't just good for the workers themselves, but also for the long-term health and competitiveness of their businesses.
Exactly. And it's not just about upskilling for the sake of keeping up with technology. It's about empowering employees to take on new challenges, develop their talents, and really contribute to the success of the company in these new and innovative ways.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about automation? I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but are robots actually taking over, or is it more nuanced than that?
It's definitely more nuanced. The report found that the approach to automation really varies a lot depending on the industry. Some sectors are really going all in on automation, while others are focusing on using technology to augment human capabilities rather than replacing them entirely.
That's interesting. Why do you think there's such a difference in approach?
I think it really comes down to the nature of the work. Some tasks are just better suited to automation, like things that are repetitive, data heavy, that can be easily standardized. But other tasks really require a human touch. Things like critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, emotional intelligence.
Right, it's like those uniquely human skills that we were talking about. They're the ones that are hardest to automate,
Yeah.
and therefore the ones that are going to be, the most valuable in the future job market.
Exactly. And this really highlights the importance of understanding which skills are most likely to be in demand and which ones are, maybe more susceptible to automation if you're thinking about a career change. Or just want to future-proof your current skill set. This
Yeah.
is something to really keep in mind.
It's like you need to become an expert in what makes you human. Focus on those skills that can't be replicated by a machine. But let's be real for a second. Job security isn't the only thing that people care about. What about attracting and retaining, like, top talent? What are companies doing to keep their employees happy and engaged?
You raise a really good point. The report actually found that employee health and well-being is now the top priority for most companies. This is a pretty big shift from even just a few years ago. And it shows that companies are recognizing that their employees are, their most valuable asset.
That's awesome. It's like companies are finally realizing that happy and healthy employees
Yeah.
are more productive, more creative, and more likely to stay with the company, long term.
Absolutely. It's a win-win for both, employers and employees. Reskilling and upskilling, career progression, wages, those are all still important factors, of course. But they're not the only things that matter anymore. Companies are realizing they need to create this supportive and healthy work environment if they want to attract and retain top talent.
It's good news for workers. It's like the power dynamic is shifting a little bit, and employees have, more leverage than ever before.
What about diversity and inclusion? Are companies finally getting serious about, creating more equitable workplaces?
It seems like they are. The report highlights that diversity and inclusion are a major focus for companies right now. And this is driven in part by, the increasing competition for talent. Companies are realizing that if they want to find the best people, they need to widen their talent pool, create a culture where everyone feels valued and respected.
Right. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's also good for business.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that diversity of thought, experience, perspective, leads to better decision-making, more innovation, a stronger company culture overall.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about AI and the workforce. I know we've kind of danced around this topic a little bit, but is everyone going to be replaced by robots? What does the report say about the future of humans and AI? Don't worry, the robot apocalypse is not upon us. The report actually paints a much more optimistic picture. It found that most companies are planning to reskill their workers to work alongside AI, not be replaced by it. There's a big focus on hiring people who can design, implement, and enhance AI tools, as well as people who can work effectively in collaboration with AI systems.
So it's not AI versus humans, it's AI and humans working together to achieve, greater outcomes.
That's the key takeaway. AI has the potential to augment human capabilities, help us solve complex problems that we couldn't solve on our own. But it's up to us to ensure that AI is developed and used ethically, responsibly, and that its benefits are shared widely, across society.
That's a powerful message. So what does it all mean? What's the bottom line for our listeners who are trying to figure all this out and navigate this crazy world of work?
The future of work is definitely full of uncertainties, but it's also, full of opportunities. The key is to be adaptable, embrace lifelong learning, and really focus on developing those uniquely human skills that are going to be, the most valuable in the years to come.
We need to become masters of our own destiny. We can't just sit back and wait for the future to happen. We need to actively shape it.
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about this report. It's not just a prediction of what the future holds. It's a call to action for all of us to start thinking critically about our skills, our careers, and the kind of future that we want to create.
So to our listeners out there, I have a question for you. What are your uniquely human superpowers? What are the skills and talents that you have that can't be replicated by a machine? Think about it, because those are the skills that are going to make you invaluable in the future job market.
And remember, the future of work isn't something that's happening to us. It's something that we are all creating together. Don't be afraid to embrace change, challenge the status quo, and imagine new possibilities.
That's an inspiring message. If you're interested in learning more about the trends we've talked about today, be sure to include a link to the full World Economic Forum report in the show notes. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of work.